And we're still on to Business Daily on Trust TV. The current state of the Nigerian economy has been a discuss in many fora recently. And over the weekend, we did hear from the International Monetary Organization, where it has advised for the aggressive monetary tightening and fiscal adjustment within the Nigerian economy. So much to discuss when it comes to the Nigerian economy. But I have my guest now with me, who is the chief economist at Economics and Data Limited, in the person of Dr. Samson Simon. Thank you for joining us on the program, Doctor.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians. Nice to hear.
Nice to have you. Doctor, let us begin with the conversation on the current state of the Nigerian economy. I'll just start by asking you, if I gave you a canvas and asked you to paint a picture depicting the current state of the Nigerian economy, what picture or what would you draw?
I want to be very honest with you, and I'll be guided by data and facts only. And the truth is, the state of the economy is not encouraging at all, particularly when it comes to the cost of living crisis that all of us are going through. The cost of living is crazy. It has priced out virtually everybody. People are struggling to even feed. Food inflation contributes the most to our inflation. And people, even before now, the poverty was extreme. And with this inflation now, more and more people are falling below the poverty line. And the government is doing its best to stem the situation, to stop things in their tracks. But sadly, so far, nothing has been working, or at least has not helped the poor man on the street. If we share palliatives, those are temporary measures. And mind you, we're a country of over 200 million people. So how many people can you share palliatives to? They open the grain reserves. How many people can be fed from that? And for how long? Those are basically cosmetics. What we need are fundamental changes. I'm not saying the palliatives should be stopped. I'm not saying they should stop the distribution of the grains. But those are temporary measures. In the moment they are gone. What we need fundamentally to be changed is about the structure of the Nigerian economy. It's about our constitution. It's about our food security. It's about food inflation. It's about equitable distribution of income. There is almost everything, as far as the economy is concerned, is largely broken. And that, all these things need to be fixed. And that's the job that President Tinubu has to get done as soon as possible. Because there's no time, things are beyond dire for everyday Nigerian.
What a gloomy picture you have painted. But you also did touch on the increased disparity, between the poor and the rich, and obviously the increasing food inflation. You also did speak to issues around, removing or releasing grains from our reserves. I want you to speak to that issue. How much of an impact is that expected to have? And is that a permanent solution towards addressing the issue of food inflation? Because there has been concerns around food, the current food crisis, not just from within Nigeria, but we have heard from international organizations, pointing fingers towards the direction of food security. But how is that a permanent situation, a permanent solution to the problem of food crisis we're currently facing?
That's far from a permanent solution. Opening the reserves is just a temporary measure. What is required is that there is so much insecurity in the land. Farmers cannot go to their farmland. And why can't they go? Because of insecurity, they're either kidnapped or they are killed. And then herders sometimes to graze on farmlands. You need to find a permanent solution to open grazing in Nigeria. Encourage ranches. Not only to the Fulani, but every Nigerian that is interested in embarking on such a venture. So all these problems require fundamental changes to the economy. And then the yield. Nigeria has an abysmal yield when it comes to the farmland. Something needs to be done. We need to increase our yield. And even for our mechanization, I know the last government and for many governments over time, they have been emphasizing that Nigerians should go back to the farm. That is not the solution. Some of the best countries where it comes to agriculture have a tiny fraction of their population engaged in agriculture, mostly within the region of 10% of the population. And they produce enough for domestic consumption, and they have so much surplus to export. While in the case of Nigeria, you want everybody to go to the farmland, and we can hardly produce enough for domestic consumption, let alone to export. So that's not the solution. We are burying our heads in the sand. What is needed is the mechanization of our farmland. We have many tractors we have. Some sources say 20,000 tractors in Nigeria. For a country of over 200 million people, while a country like China, that is just 7 times our population, or even India, that is also 7 times our population, have 1.6 tractors. So we have a long way to go, and that's why our horsepower per hectare is just 0.3 horsepower per hectare. That's a bit small. China is doing 8. And we need to mechanize our agriculture. We need to make sure that people have access to improved breeds of either seeds or even animals. All these things need to be done. But you cannot even do that when you have not tackled insecurity. I don't know why the authorities are playing ostrich. The problem of insecurity is dire, and people can hardly go to their farmland. So we cannot even talk about increasing output or getting improved inputs to farmers or getting fertilizers to farmers or increasing the number of tractors when they cannot even go to the farmland. Go to the food basket of Nigeria, go to Benue, go to the south, the northwest. Bandits are everywhere. I was reading recently in Premium Times, they have local bandits in Benue, native people. So all these problems, and the moment others feel like the authorities cannot do anything, they become emboldened to become criminals. So that has to be stopped. The government needs to do something urgently about that.
Indeed, we
That's
do.
That's the best way out of the food inflation or food scarcity that we're having at the moment.
Indeed. We do hope that, the right actions are taken to nip the issue of insecurity in the bud. But let's talk briefly on, the current forex volatility that we are currently experiencing. There has been quite a number of actions by the CBN, to mop up excess liquidity. Let us hear from you. How much of an effect has that had so far? And if it hasn't, what are your recommendations towards addressing the current FX problems Nigeria is facing?
Well, the current central bank governor, Mr. Olayemi Cardoso, is doing everything possible, bringing policy after policy, cycle after cycle. He's determined. There's no denying the fact that he's passionate about his job and is determined to get results. But the truth is, some of the things are beyond the purview of the Central Bank of Nigeria. And the major problem is the supply of forex. And people have lost confidence in the Naira, particularly as a store of value. Nobody has confidence in the Naira, and you cannot blame Nigerians for losing confidence in the Naira. I'm not justifying it, I'm just stating the fact. I always cite this example. When I used to work at VI, I used to go to an eatery. And for 1 square meal, you could get a large chunk of chicken and rice for 1,500 naira. Within a year, the same food was costing 6,000 naira. This happened in 2022. So if you had dollar, well, at that time, the exchange rate maybe was within 400 naira. So 400 naira to the dollar. So with $4 on the average, you could buy that food. But with the devaluation in naira now, naira has been devalued by the authorities, and it has depreciated over time. And people are seeing how their savings, how their income have been made completely useless. And the major problem is not even the common man, because the common man does not have so much resources to influence the foreign exchange market the way those politicians have. And what Emefiele was trying to do was a good thing, in the sense that he was trying to encourage cashless policy. And if everything is digitized, you can check those people. Sadly, he went about it the wrong way and at the wrong time. So I think the central bank needs to bring that into one of its policies. They need to encourage that so that less and less cash transactions will be done, so that they can trace those people that are exchanging billions of naira at any exchange rate. That's a serious problem. And we need to spur export. Our major problem is our inability to export. What Nigeria exports is basically crude oil and petroleum gas. That's like 80–90% of our export, according to the Observatory of Economic Complexity. So that's really terrible. And we tend to demonize imports. The problem is not imports, per se. Our major problem is inability to export. And let me cite an example. Our MSMEs are 50% of economic activity. What is their contribution to export? 6%, just a tenth of their contribution to GDP. Go to China, the MSMEs contribute 60% to economic activity, to GDP. What is their contribution to export? 70%. So that's a fundamental problem. Nobody talks about it, nobody cares. So our inability to export is a major problem. We under-export, and even the import that we're demonizing, we under-import. If you compare us to our peers, like South Africa and Egypt, South Africa is doing like 100 billion in import. How much is Nigeria doing? 60, and we're demonizing it. But it's not a problem for South Africa because they're also doing well when it comes to export. They export more than 140 billion. So it's not a problem for them. So our problem is our inability to export. Outside oil and gas, Nigeria hardly exports anything. Anything that we export, whether it's cocoa beans or whatever, is negligible. So that's a fundamental problem that we need to solve. And this oil theft also has contributed to our problem. Oil theft has to be tackled as a matter of urgency. It's not about giving such contracts to militants. It's beyond what militants can do. The entire Nigerian state has to mobilize all the resources it has, all its firepower to tackle that problem, because it has affected us seriously. It has affected us more than the crash in oil price has affected us over time. So there are fundamental problems that need tackling. Sadly, I don't think we're doing enough to tackle this problem.
Indeed. We do expect to, have the first Monetary Policy Committee meeting of the CBN headed by the current CBN Governor, Chiamaka, sometime next week, I believe on Monday and on Tuesday. What are your expectations from that meeting? Do you expect to see tightening in terms of interest rate, or what are you looking forward to?
The truth is we need tightening more than any other person. That should normally not be a question, in the sense that our inflation is three times target, more than 3 times the target. The target inflation for Nigeria is 6 to 9%. That's even very high if you compare it to the global standards. The biggest economies in the world, the most powerful central banks, consider 2% of inflation to be ideal. Nigeria doesn't consider 2%. We consider 6 to 9%. And even at that 6 to 9%, we're approaching 30% now, which is, if we consider compared to 9, it's more than 3 times. If we compare to 6, it's talking about times 5 of the average of the target that the Monetary Authority considers best for Nigeria. So it's a huge problem, and they should tighten as aggressively as they can. I know some people are saying that already they have been tightening, inflation has remained unabated. That's true, because we have a lot of other problems too. For example, ways and means. Thankfully, Cardoso is trying to stop that. Printing money, it has multiplied our money supply. And the primary reason for inflation is money supply. There's a direct relationship between money supply and inflation, according to the most basic monetary economics. So that, thankfully, is being tackled. And even the interventions by central bank, that one is being stopped. I hope it's not just rhetoric, that they actually mean it. Because if they want to tackle inflation, they have to rein in money supply. And interest rates have to be hiked it may not be pleasant, but as a monetary authority, your overarching mandate is price stability. And you have to do everything possible to ensure that price is within target, even if some Nigerians will have to go through some pains. But it's for our good ultimately.
Okay, just before...
rising,
Just before we go, unfortunately, our time is fast spent, but before we go in 1 minute, obviously over the weekend we did hear of the death of the group managing director of Access Holdings, Herbert Wigwe. Our love and condolences go out to the entire Wigwe family. But let us hear from you. There are plans, to announce the emergence of the new group Chief Executive of Access Holdings. We understand that announcement will be done today. But can you run us through the process? How will his successor emerge?
My heartfelt condolences to the family of Dr. Herbert Wigwe. It's a painful thing for all of us. He was a visionary. He was a great patriot. He did a lot of things when he was in charge of Access Holdings. And for his successor, it's likely going to be amongst his deputies or even from outside the Access Bank. But it will be big shoes for anybody to fill. As rigorous as the process can be, it will not be easy for Access Holdings to find a replacement for Herbert Wigwe. He was an exceptional human being. And I believe that over time, whomever is being selected will eventually grow into those shoes. And Access Bank is a corporate body that has high standards. I'm sure they'll bring somebody that will largely be up to the task.
Well, thank you very much. I've been speaking with Dr. Samson Simon, who is the Chief Economist at ARC Economics and Data Limited. Thank you for your insight on the current state of the Nigerian economy.
Thank you.
And this is the point where we draw the curtains in today's edition of Business Daily, coming to you on Trust TV. It is the first edition for the week, and Business Daily obviously will be with you every day of the week from 11 o'clock till 11:30. So do well to join us on all our editions of the program this week. My name is Chiamaka Enendu. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.